Hello, Sherry and Angela. For assignment 3, I decided to do solve a problem with a child. The child I decided to do this with is my 8-year-old daughter, Charlotte, and it is all about bees. One day we were outside and we were just sitting there and we were observing the bees. I decided that I'd lay in the grass and get a closer look, and all my children decided to follow, but Charlotte took the most interest in this. She asked if she could see my phone and get some pictures of the bees. There were many questions asked. I started off as, how would you like to learn about bees? And she's like, can we just watch them and see what they do? I said, not a problem. Then she asked the question, how does the bees collect honey? And then I came back with, maybe we can try to explain the process of how the bees collect the honey by watching them and what they do. So we sat there and we watched, and they took a closer look. They moved close to where the honeybees were, but I told them not to get too close just in case they might get stung. But the bees just kind of seemed to stay, and they watched, and they said that they were moving with their feet around. I said, okay, good observation. We'll go with that. They said, does it go on their feet? And then they bring the honey back to their hive. I said, well, we're going to try this out. I said, what do you think? And so that's what we went with. Another question that was asked by my daughter, why do they move from flower to flower? And I asked, well, I came back with, let's find out. Let's think together of why they may move from flower to flower. So there was a variety of explanations for that. Is they got tired of one flower, or they just didn't like the flower anymore, or the pollen that they were collecting to make honey, they just didn't have enough pollen on that flower. So that's what we went with. Another question that was asked was, and this was by my 8-year-old, she is very observant and asked a lot of questions, so it kind of made my job a little more easier of not asking so many questions. I just sat and listened. Where do the bees go? Because she observed that when the sun went away, the bees went away. We're still working on this question right now. We're trying to figure out, where do the bees go? They said, do they hide because they like the sun? So we're still working on that one. And then another question was, how can we get pictures of the bees? Because the bees would move, and they were finding it hard to take a picture of the bees to observe them. And I said, maybe if we what do you think if we lay really, really still? Do you think they're going to come closer to us? So we laid in the grass really, really still, and the bees did come closer to us, and they snapped a lot of shots. They got some bees, and sometimes they didn't get bees, but that was okay. They were, as she was, and her siblings, when they were still interested, were taking pictures. At the end of that, she wanted to write a little story about it, and that is also in the PowerPoint. It's right here. She did some self-correcting. Okay. Bees collect pollen to make honey from flowers, or to collect honey from flowers. Bees are black and yellow. They are also fuzzy. Bees can sting people, and after the bee stings, the bee is dead. That would be sad. The queen bee is the one who gives birth to bees. The queen bee is the one who gives birth to baby bees, and the bees grow up. End of her story. And that's what she observed from our little observation outside. So I asked the question, how are we going to save the bees if they sting people and they die? So we did a little more research on that, and we found out that honeybees have something on their stinger that if they sting another animal, it doesn't stay in and they survive. But if they sting like a human, because our skin's thicker, it embeds in their skin and it falls out and it kills the honeybee. But we also found out, because she wanted to know the difference between a honeybee and a bumblebee, that I always thought, so this is something new I learned. What I learned was bumblebees, I always thought that they were the ones to lose their stinger and die. But their stinger is different than a honeybee stinger, and they can lose their stinger, but they can survive a little bit after it. With a honeybee, it dies directly after. So that is something new we learned together. She also came up with a list. 5 ways to save the bees. This is also included in my PowerPoint. Number 1, plant a bee-friendly garden. So we have flowers and everything around our yard to make sure that the bees can get enough pollen. So we started that one. Support No Mow May. And we are going to be coming, she wants to come up with ideas and ways of getting more people on board for No Mow May. We already do it here. We've been doing it for a couple years now. But she wants to spread the word for more people to do that to save them. Build a bee house. And we are started on that. And there's also pictures of her building her bee house in the PowerPoint. Support beekeepers. So we have across the road from us, there is a lady over there that has is a beekeeper, and I want to actually ask her. We're pretty close, so to see if we can go over and observe and see if we can find out more about honeybees. Number 5 is catch the bee. Do not kill them when they get into your house or car. That's a good one, to not kill them off. We have been working on this for about 4 weeks now. I learned from this problem solving that she came up with the list all on her own. We talked about certain things that bees, and she came up with the list. The bee house is pretty interesting building. But the way that her mind opened up about something that she was passionate and cared about, and trying to find ways of what's different, how can we help, really opened my eyes to the strategies that children can have all on their own to try to solve problems of just the world around them. What did I learn about myself as an educator? Even though it was my own child, I had to realize I didn't have to ask as many questions because she had the questions, because it was something that she was interested in. I didn't have to come up with a whole lot of questions. I did come in with a little bit of guidance to maybe where we can find some of the answers, or can we come up with the answers on our own. That's the only time I really had to ask any questions. She came up with the questions on her own. Where might we go next with this problem solving? Maybe we could start our own bee farm. She seemed quite interested in that. Or we could even build bee houses, and she could either sell them or give them to people to try and save the bees. So we could extend the learning into that, and maybe learn about, because she asked at one point, what is the difference between a hornet and a wasp and bumblebees? We also found out that the wasp and hornets are aggressive, whereas honeybees and bumblebees are more subtle. They just mind their own business. There was also something else that we found out about a bumblebee, that they don't want to attack people. A warning sign is they can roll over and wiggle their legs at you. So that was pretty cool. She thought that was funny. But we can extend the learning in all aspects of this, maybe of how to go further into spreading the word of saving the bees. Could be our next steps. We're going to work on that continuously, probably, because this is we are now in summer, so we got a lot of time. Some quotes that I pulled out of our weekly learning. Week 2, the PowerPoint, slide 3. Figure out how to solve a new problem is also a challenging intellectual task, which pushes children to evaluate their own efforts to discover new concepts and to invent new strategies. So maybe as we move forward, she can invent a new way to save the bees. We're not quite there yet, but as she gets more strategies going, maybe she can create a new way, and maybe we can bring that into for people to acknowledge. That was off of slide 3. Slide 13. It is powerful, the vocabulary young writers will attempt when they are able to take risks and solve their own writing challenges. So I chose this one because of her writing. And this was slide 13, she chose words that she knew how to say, but she didn't spell them correctly until she went back and reviewed them. And she's like, oh, and she knew what she missed, like in sting. She knew it was ing, but she must have, when she was writing, she was, I observed her like just really interested in, and probably didn't really pay attention that she forgot the N. So she went back and fixed all that. And that shows me that she has a great vocabulary, and she does know and chose challenging words, but knew when to go back and correct it. The next quotes, and this really isn't a quote, but it comes from week 7, slide 8. 4 groups of science inquiry skills: raising questions, predicting and planning investigations. That's 1. 2, gathering evidence by observing and using information sources. 3, analyzing, interpreting, and explaining. 4, communicating, arguing, reflecting, and evaluating. So I believe we did the 4 groups. We are more into the fourth skill. communicating, arguing, reflecting, and evaluating. We are more there of figuring out how to conclude, or if we want to conclude it, or is there more that we could do. So we are at that point in the inquiry skills. This is what I want to bring into my classroom. I've seen how my children are open to exploring. I've seen in school settings, and especially high school, where I mentioned in week 7's post this week that there's like a block when they hit high school because it's curriculum. This is the goal you have to meet. And there was a science teacher, I believe she was a grade 9 science teacher, and I was filling in for a resource teacher, so they just kind of basically put me in different classrooms to help teachers. And she had an inquiry-based type classroom setting, and I was very interested. But the students, this is what really made me more interested, is the students didn't know what to do. They kept searching for the correct answer, and the teacher's like, how do you think this should go? Even with me as a supply teacher and helping in this classroom, I had students coming to me and asking me, well, is this the right way? I'm like, do you think it's the right way? What do you think you should do? And the high school students didn't really know how to accept that. So I think if we can teach this type of learning at a young age, and when they get to high school, maybe this can happen in the high school level as well. And that's why I want to teach my children as mistakes are okay to make. Figuring things out on your own is also a great way to learn things. I have another example before I get back to the quotes. My daughter, who is going into grade 11, my oldest, she wants to take trades math, which is great. She's looking into her future now. So she's taking carpentry. She wasn't big on carpentry, but now this year she's going into welding. And she said that she wants to take trades math, and she's excellent at math. And I said to her, because I overheard a teacher saying in the high school that in trades math there's no calculator. She said, well, Mom, how do we do the math? And this took me back. I'm like, you problem solve. You figure another way to use your brain instead of a calculator. She's like, well, are they going to teach us this? And I stopped right there, and I'm like, if this was taught at a younger age, they would maybe know what to do at an older age. So I said, well, we'll work on this together when the time comes and you take this math course, and we'll figure out ways around that. So I believe problem solving is a big thing that should be in children's life, because once they hit the high school age group, they don't know what to do. They're like, is somebody going to teach this to me? Well, problem solving can be taught, yes, but problem solving is also figuring things out on your own. With guidance from a teacher, obviously, yes, but mainly take the lead and try to figure it out. So the next quote I have is from slide 9 and week 7 of PowerPoint. Children learn best through material and physical activity. When they work things out through their own thinking in interaction with adults or other children, rather than receiving instruction and information to memorize. And this goes back to what I just said about my oldest daughter. If this was taught at a younger age, I believe that they wouldn't have they won't struggle with this. And now it's a struggle for older children. And I'm hoping that once I start teaching, I can help these children problem solve and when they hit the higher levels, because when you go off to college and stuff, you have guidance from your instructors or professors, but there's a lot of problem solving that I have found, that I've had to do, especially with having dyslexia. But I've dealt with that my whole life, so it wasn't a big struggle for me, because I've always had to problem solve and figure ways of my own learning. The next quote is also from slide 9. Language, particularly discussion and interaction, with others, has an important part in the development of reasoning skills and ideas. So that quote also ties into what I was just talking about. Is children need these skills and problem-solving skills their whole life, not just at an elementary level, but also as they get older. And this Bumblebee project that we're working on, inquiry, is showing me that once a kid is interested in something, they're going to explore it more, and they're going to be excited about sitting down and writing things about, or asking questions and trying to solve problems. My final quote comes from week 1. Exploration and problem solving, early learning and child care is the article, and it Nason and page 1. At the same time, educators must recognize that a good many problems young children encounter are deeply embedded in their daily social lives and are defined as problems, not just by the child, but by the various communities of children and adults to which the children belongs. So most of what I took from this is most problems that children come across and express to you are problems that are going on in the community and the world around them. For instance, yes, she knew about bees, but she took a deeper look and asked more questions when an adult took interest in, but even involved her siblings, which her siblings were involved a little bit, but then they got bored. It wasn't something they were interested in. But asked questions and took a deeper look at how can we save the bees, and extend it off of what people are doing, like No More May. Came up with an idea of maybe we could make bee houses for other people, and then we can save more bees. Not sure if somebody's already thought about doing that, but what a great idea. We could help out with that. So this is my assignment 3, solve a problem with a child. I want to say thank you for this course. It has been eye-opening, and I can't wait to problem solve with more children as I start to teach in my own classroom, hopefully within the next couple years or so. Thank you, Angela and Sherry.